And really seeing what I can do with the power of motion blur to add kind of a lot of dynamic, a lot of movement, while still being a still image or a picture. Now this scene will be on my Patreon, however this model is by, I can't pronounce his name, Sisman Kubicki, I believe that's how you would say it. It won't also contain materials as they're from Grayscale Gorilla, however I did modify them slightly. But yeah, you can find that on my Patreon. It'll have the camera set up, the scene set up, the light set up, all ready for you to place the model once you've downloaded it. So here I've just opened up a blank scene in Cinema. I'm using 2023. I've just stuck with 2023 for now. I haven't quite switched to 2024 completely yet. Not sure why, kind of holding it off, although it's pretty much the same. I've imported the model here. Now this model is from the guy I was talking about at the beginning of the video. It's from a kind of larger bike model, so when you download the model, it will be a full bike. However, I just kind of split out just this pedal bit, as this was the only bit I was using. However, it's an incredible model. You can kind of use whatever part you like of that. The model is in quads, so it's got really nice topology. It's modeled brilliantly. And yeah, I've just slapped in a couple subdivision surfaces in there just to make it a bit more high poly. So initially I kind of want to set up the scene of kind of how this pedal is sitting in this render that I did. So let's kind of set up the camera and the rotation of the pedal. First of all, I'm just going to get rid of this work plane, and I'm going to bring up a Octane camera. You can also go to Octane Dialog, Objects, Octane Camera, but I've just got it kind of logged up here. So let's just kind of zero this out and see what we can do, just to kind of match the initial shot I did originally. Now in the scene file that is on my Patreon, this will all be done for you, and you don't really have to worry about kind of setting all this up specifically. Okay, so I've got my camera zeroed out here, pushed back a little bit on the x-axis. Usually it would be on the Z, but we'll just keep it for now. And rotated it 90 degrees. Now for this render, I believe I did a resolution of 2000 by 2000, just a standard square. So we'll just go in and change that in the render settings up here, and width and height to 2000. That gives us kind of a nice frame to work with. So next, I kind of just want to find a position that I kind of really like. I was just messing kind of with rotating this. I just turned off the lines there using keyboard shortcut NA and then ND to kind of bring them back. So yeah, let's try and match kind of this rotation that I did here. Might need to zoom in a bit more, something like that. And we're showing a bit more of this logo here. So it's something like that. I also want to change the focal length of this camera. And originally or standardly it's using a classic, but I'm going to switch to a telephoto lens and zoom out a bit more here. Now the reason why I'm doing that, it looks a bit more cinematic, the image is a lot flatter, meaning I don't have to kind of rotate the model as much, and I will still be able to kind of get this clear view, this part up here, this part here, and just kind of lines up perfectly with this part of the model here. I'll just go back and you can kind of see the difference in focal length. So here, I kind of have to rotate the model a lot more to see this more of the bottom logo. And then as you can see here, we're losing a lot of the stuff that we want to see up here as well. So I'll just put that back and we will change this back to a telephoto lens. Okay, so I believe it kind of fits the frame like that. Which is pretty perfect, maybe something like that. So for this render, I had kind of different bits split apart, and that's due to the fact I wanted different parts to have motion blur, and I wanted different parts to not have it. As you can see up here, I've kind of got no motion blur on it. Same with this text here. However, all of these bits have full motion blur. And that's because I really wanted to kind of show what the pedal was spinning on a bike. This part would be screwed in. And I just wanted to kind of add some variety to the render, kind of make it a bit more complex. I recommend experimenting with that. It can create some really quite interesting results, and it's really quite unique. So yeah, what I've done in Cinema is I've split off the main bit to this part kind of here. As you can see, it's split off from this top bit, and it's also split off from the text because I want the motion blur to affect it differently. However, I'm not going to be kind of moving it on this axis or on this axis. So if you kind of see your text going in or certain parts going in, doesn't matter as long as it doesn't move on the axis we're mainly rotating it on. I believe this was in here as well. Just put that in there. Yeah, there we go. So now the XTR text is moving with it as well. So the next part we want to do is animate this super quickly, moving around, and then we'll actually move on to the motion blur parts. So let's kind of see how we're going to go about this. So as we can see, the motion blur is kind of coming this way, kind of rotating from somewhere like here, this way. If we were to kind of animate it going this way, you'd see kind of the inverse of the way this motion blur is going, as the direction of it has changed. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to keyframe an animation of this pedal actually moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the pedal kind of about here. I'm going to set a keyframe on the R.P rotation axis. We don't want to do it on any of the others. As you can see, when we move it, only that digit is moving up and down. And then I want to go to kind of the 20th frame. We want to keep this super quick, so we're getting that really fast motion blur. If you were to do it over a long period of time, you'd struggle to kind of get that really rapid or really dramatic kind of motion blur effect we're looking for. So we want this over kind of a really quick time. And I'm just going to put it kind of past where we want it to be. Because obviously if we did it here, there'd be no motion blur because it would be where the animation had stopped. Same with kind of the start bit, there's going to be no animation there because it's not moving. However, the motion blur will take place between frame 1 and 19, as we can kind of see here. So the place I kind of want the pedal to be is about here. As we can kind of see, that's the rotation of it there. I'm just going based off this corner here and how close it is to the digit. That's pretty similar there. So we want to stay at about frame 15, and that is pretty quick. Obviously it's not playing in real time because I've got a bunch of subdivision surfaces on. If I just turn that off, it'll be a bit quicker. I might even rotate it a bit more to be a bit quicker. So maybe something like that. That looks pretty much perfect. And then we'll just find another frame, maybe something like 15 or 16 maybe. And we'll just rotate this camera a bit like that. I'm using 3, by the way. Instead of using these, you can use 1, 2, 3. 1 to kind of move, 2 to zoom in and out, 3 to kind of rotate. Yeah. So let's just bring up Octane Dialog, Objects, Light, and Area Light, and make this considerably smaller. Now, what I do pretty much every time with my lights, instead of having to constantly rotate this and find the right rotation so it's aligned with the model correctly, what I do is I add a target tag. Usually this is used in animation or rigging, but I use it mainly for my lights. So we're just going to press Shift-C and then look for target, and it will apply a kind of target to this light here. I then want to drag the model into the target object, and as you can see now, wherever I move the light, it will stay locked kind of in the way it rotates on that on the pedal. And I believe it was somewhere over here. And what I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to bring up the Octane Live viewer, So we're just gonna load that up. Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna dock it over here, lock the resolution, and then now we can kind of go into the render settings. Now we've got a bit of light here. So what we're gonna do is go to Octane settings, go to path tracing. Now we don't need this much kind of, I guess, samples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to about 2000. We also don't need this much depth, so I'm going to change this to about 10, and we'll leave that at 8 actually. There's no need for that. We don't need this this kind of high digit in the GL clamp. So I'm just going to change it to 10, looking up render times. Having it that high a lot of the time really doesn't make any difference at all. I'm also going to go to adaptive sampling and change it to 150. And as you can kind of see here, we've got a fairly quick render time for quite a high resolution image. Match this up to my original scene, something like that. And I think I kept the settings pretty much the same. I didn't change anything. I just kept these all default, power 100, temperature 6500. I'm then just gonna, let me just control and drag out here. And drag a new one right here. That should be fine. And then we wanted another kind of top light. This isn't aligned correctly, but it doesn't matter for now because there are old lights. So let's move this to the top of our model. And make it a bit thinner to match the original one. Because I don't want it as wide, I want it to only cover kind of this area over here. I don't need it kind of going across the whole thing. We'll just move that a bit closer. Cool, I believe that also stayed the same. What was this? No, okay, so I've really lowered this one to about 12, so it's not too overpowering. And then that's just the back one, which we'll do in a sec. Okay, so we've got our basic lights here. Obviously, it doesn't look that great as of now. However, once we add an HRI environment, a black environment that is, starts to get a bit more professional, I guess you could say, as we start getting these kind of really nice lights. What I want to do is, I don't want to see these lights in my Octane render view. So what we're going to do is just going to select all of these, go to visibility and then camera visibility, and there we have some kind of almost similar lighting of what I had before. As we can kind of see here, I've got that nice light there, we've got some nice light here, got these rims here and here. But yeah, okay, let's move into the motion blur and the camera tag of our scene. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a plane. Now this is just going to be for our backdrop. Obviously we don't want it black, and we want to add some nice kind of softer shadows and some softer highlights without using lights. So let's just scale this down a bit. Wrong one. Let's rotate it 90 degrees and move it all the way back so it's not interfering with any of these original lights. All the way back. Probably have to make it bigger in the end. Let's just see if, yeah, that's easily covering the scene. The next thing we want to do is we want to add a bigger light to kind of fill this up. So let's go to, let's just grab another light, lights, area light. I am going to switch the lines now because it's getting a bit harder to see. So I just pressed ND. And we're just going to have this focus this plane and scale it down a bit more maybe, and move it pretty close to the plane, not all the way in, because we want it to kind of expand over this area, down, and kind of out of the way really. Let's make this bigger again. That. So now we have kind of something like this. It's a really kind of soft gradient. Obviously this bit here is too harsh and we want to change the color of the background. So what I'm going to do is, because it's so harsh and doesn't have as soft as I want it to be, I'm going to move it back slightly to soften it out, and then just increase the size as well. Move it back, and let's put the brightness down significantly. The next thing I want to do is add a brighter material, or a material to this, just so it's not standard. Diffuse, let's go to here, and let's change this to about 80, and add a little bit of color, tiny bit of red, even too much red there. Let's do maybe 2%, something like that. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now as you can kind of see here, we've got very harsh lights, we've got very harsh shadows, and this isn't typically the kind of way I go about it. I use a color space called Aces. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to Camera Imager, and then we're going to enable Aces tone mapping. Now what you'll see with Aces tone mapping is that it kind of dims the whole image, and clamps everything kind of down, but also gets rid of a lot of detail by increasing the shadows and the blacks. So what we're going to do is just going to bump up the exposure to 1.5 and highlight compression all the way to 1 to get rid of kind of any kind of bad parts here, I guess. Everything else can kind of stay, and then we can go to post, enable, and just a little bit of bloom maybe there. But as you can kind of see here, we're getting some really nice detail here off kind of this material. We're getting these nice bits here, here and here. It's looking really nice so far. I just want to enable that subdivision surface again, just so it looks perfect. So the next thing we're kind of going to do is, as you can see, we still have this pedal rotating like that, and we were using frame, I believe it was 15. So as you can kind of see here, it's still moving throughout. We're not at the end of the animation, meaning there's going to be some motion blur there. So let's go to this null of the bit that we kind of rotated, and we're going to go to, we're going to right click on the null, we're going to go to extensions, C4D, Octane tags, if I don't lose it. Without that, you won't be able to kind of see the motion blur. We're going to enable with the Octane camera. So the next thing we're going to do is going to go to motion blur, enable, and put this pretty low. That's way too high. Something like 0.15. Now this probably will need a re-render. As you can see, no motion blur is coming up. And there you can kind of see the motion blur we have, but I kind of want a bit more. So let's go to 0.02, maybe something like that. Yeah, something like that looks cool. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Objects, HDRI Environment. I'm going to utilize Grayscale Gorilla here, as I think that HDRIs are really great. And we're just going to Shift-C, HDRI Link Plus, and link this image texture up to here. Now this is just a standard one. Obviously you can kind of just choose to mess with some, but I'm going to find one here, and I'll probably speed up the video as well. Okay, so I've kind of found a HDRI I like, which is kind of fill the image out a bit. However, I just want to add some more light to this bottom bit here, as we kind of had here as well. A cool trick that I'm going to use here is I'm going to go to Options, Update Check Camera, and then that means it's going to lock the camera in the viewport, and I can also kind of move around here and see it kind of won't update. However, if I was to move a light, it updates, but I'm kind of out of that perspective of where the camera is, so I know what it's going to look like in kind of the final thing. What I've also noticed here is it's a bit too bright here on this side for me, so I'm just going to lower this a bit to something like 50, and that's a bit better. I'm then gonna drag out another light from here. So let's just use this one, for example, and move it down, way further down. So I don't really want it affecting this part here. And let's change it to something like 5. Let's clamp this a bit, maybe move it under, a bit lower maybe. That kind of fills the image up a bit more. And then I believe I just added a bit in post here as well. But we're getting some nice details here and here. And that's exactly what we want. So since we've now kind of completed pretty much everything, we've got that really nice motion blur. We've got obviously these focus parts as well. There's not much more that we can do. Obviously we can increase the motion blur, maybe even a bit more. I believe in the final one there is a little bit more. But other than that, that is pretty much as similar as you can get from the render that I did. Yeah, that's a bit more like it. I'm in fact liking this one a bit more. It's looking a bit more realistic. But yeah, that is pretty much the gist of how I went about this render. Everything else is kind of in post. We can do actually, is we could just move this back, something like that, and lower the brightness a little bit. Yeah, something like that. That is pretty much this render here. Yeah, that's pretty much how I went about it. In this video, we kind of covered the Aces color space, animating, some nice product lighting, HDRI usage, and also motion blur with the kind of Octane object tags. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions. Check out the Patreon page where this project file will be, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.